when you said the title, it didn't register at all. But as soon
Right.
as I heard it, it's like
Like
you
in
know,
what
you.
other song have you ever heard that line delivered? Or even have,
I know.
considering where you are in the world, how many people have you ever encountered that have just said that sentence to you?
Oh, 2 minutes to count. 2 minutes to count. But you know what? They may consider it, but most of them are all talk. They never actually do it.
Yeah, no
Anyway,
one ever goes through with the Memphis move, do they, John? You're right.
no, no.
Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another Friday episode of the Audiophiles. I'm Andy, that's John, and today we're going to be listening to a song offered up by one of you lovely people out there. This song is going to be one that John gives a listen to, as luck would have it. We actually had a listener who, instead of opting to provide a comment in one of our videos comment field, actually reached out to us directly via email. So Bruce Lucock requested this via that email, and it is the Colorblind James Experience and the track Considering a Move to Memphis. Um, does anything about that request ring a bell other than you saw the email come through? Do you know anything about the band or have you heard anything about the song?
No, you think you would remember something like that?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It was definitely one of those where in our sheet it had to affirm two no's, as in no, I don't know it, and no, John doesn't know it under the corresponding column. So yeah, I wasn't sure if maybe you had caught wind or heard of the act, yet hadn't heard them, similar to how I was with Dead Can Dance. But yeah, this was all new to me too, which made my listening experience and the homework of the band all that much more interesting. So I now that I know I've heard the song and I know a little bit about them, I'm even more eager to hear what you have to say on the other side of this, as I am sure Bruce is as well. So please give it a go, John.
Will do. Right, I'm immediately getting Saturday morning TV, cartoons, and that sort of nonsense, blind, carefree, bouncing around for the sake of it, and like children's parties as well, whether this be the soundtrack to Pass the Puzzle or musical statues or something like that. But it's got that joy to it. I guess it's the vibes, the vibraphone with the guitar. And the guitar's got hardly any tone to it at all. It's just real natural sounding guitar. Um, yeah, it's really cool.
I'm considering a move to Memphis with my hair all aglow. When I arrive in Memphis, I'm bound to meet up with someone I might know. I'm considering a move to Memphis, a move to Memphis. I'm considering.
Okay. So uh, that voice is that sort of considered tone. It just reminds me of some sort of slightly groovy but earnest young man from the '60s with a turtleneck. Wants to be called an author rather than a writer. He's got one of those sort of tones about him. And then the guys, his mates from the milk bar, chip in with the ba 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 bas. Yeah, it's got that '60s grooviness to it as well. Um, it was really charming. And I realised then when the music cut and it's almost like reading out the sort of or a textbook. I'm considering, and I've heard that before. That chorus, whatever it is, I've definitely heard that before. I should have really, I just didn't come from the recesses of my memory, and so I heard it again there. I should have made the dots before, but obviously not. So yeah, I haven't heard the rest of the song though, but that's interesting. Okay.
I'll visit the Graceland mansion and set my face in wax, then go back to my motel room to file my income tax. I'm considering a move to Memphis, and this much I know: when I arrive in Memphis, I'll have to spend my dough. I'll walk down to Beale Street to watch the jug band show. I'll shake hands with Gus Cannon, he's someone I should know. I'll get myself a motel room that's not too small to see. I'll get one with a private bath on a black and white TV. Memphis isn't all that big, at least that's how I found it. Why, it only took an hour and a half to walk completely around it. Memphis isn't all that big, it isn't all that wide. Still, it is the kind of place where a country boy can hide. I'm considering a move to Memphis, a move to Memphis. I'm considering.
The vibes.
I'll find a favorite restaurant and eat there every day, and at the nearby bowling alley I'll bowl my cares away. Some days I'll order chicken, some days I'll order fish, some days I'll have pierogies, that's a Polish dish. And after bowling 20 frames I'll sit and have a beer. Perhaps I'll meet a pretty girl who is a barmaid there. I'll get a job at a steakhouse, wash dishes, mop floors. Yes, I know I won't get rich. Memphis is the kind of town that won't feel like a trap. Besides, I kind of like the way it sits there on the map. I'm considering a move to Memphis, that's Memphis, Tennessee. It worked for Elvis Presley, why can't it work for me? The people in the restaurants there will all use forks and knives. They won't take decongestants, though, for fear of getting hives.
There's this quirkiness to it in the narrative. Yeah, I love that it worked for Elvis Presley. Why won't it work for me? I don't really understand why they won't take decongestants. I thought it was to do with drug use for fear of getting hives, but it still sounds really cool. And it has that same charm of like Jonathan Richman, that sort of quirkiness. Yes, it's a slightly different style, but it still has the same essence. I'm kind of thinking the way as well of like other songs like this, which may not sound musically the same, but have that like Driving Away from Home. I want to say It's Immaterial. I think it is. It's that same thing. It's all conversational. Hey, get in, or whatever he says. It was like driving away from 30 miles or more. Not exactly ambitious distance, but yeah, it kind of reminds me of that sort of thing as well. I don't really get that many of these sort of songs now that just narrate. Yeah, it's definitely sort of almost a novelty thing of the past. Probably rightly so. Anyway, let's carry on.
I'm considering a move to Memphis, a move to Memphis. I'm considering.
Second break. Same order, I think. Bass, vibes. So me, electric guitar next, then the drums. Is that a banjo?
I'll ask the lowly sparrow up in his lofty perch, would you please direct me to the local Baptist church? I'll attend the Wednesday meeting, and there I'll speak in tongues. I'll shout and holler, praise the Lord, until I nearly burst my lungs. Someday I'll return to Memphis in my own private jet. I'll remember my first visit there, that's if I don't forget. When I arrive in Memphis, I'll put a sign out on the door. It's okay to disturb me. That's what I came here for. I'm considering a move to Memphis, a move to Memphis. I'm considering.
Okay, interesting. That last verse is a bit strange. But yeah, overall, quirky, fun. I think 6.5 minutes is probably stretching, really. But I really enjoyed the instrumental breaks. They kind of almost reminded me of a more innocent, for want of a better word, version of like a Violent Femmes sort of instrumental break. Yeah, it has some sort of spirit about it, which is quite fun. Yeah, it's decent. So it's not something I think I would dust off very often, but initially that sort of joie de vivre from that opening sort of volley of sound is really pleasant. So yeah, nice one. Okay, let's find out more about Colorblind James and his experience, or not. Let's go back and chop it up with Andy.
All right, so you have moved on back from your listen to the Colorblind James experience. What did you think of their track Considering a Move to Memphis?
So we start with a sort of stuttered delivery of transitory joy, and that basic guitar sound combining with the vibes, man. I always call it the vibes just because of Roy Ayers vibraphone. It has an arc and impish quality, and I'm taken back to Saturday morning television, all wholesome, bouncing nonsense with cartoons, and also children's parties. It's like, each time the music pauses, it's another layer of past the parcel being torn away, and the silence between the outbursts or musical statues or whatever. It does reek of that sort of unthinking and uncomplicated childish joy, coupled with an overdose of the Chernobyl of soft drinks, Sunny Delight. There's also a hint of sort of 60s groovy coolness. I picture the backing dancers in those clothes that look like giant sheets of cardboard, and and they grab that one riff and they ride it all the way to Tennessee, and that's just peachy keen by me. So in comes a voice, and again I'm getting 60s vibes of some clever young thing that sports a turtleneck and wafts an empty pipe, and probably wants to be called an author rather than a writer. And there's almost that sort of instructional, technical college tone to his voice, like not there's this weird kind of solemnity to it. I don't know, but luckily he's got the guys from the Milk Bar to back him up. Firstly, with a delightful sack of bars, ba 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 ba, and then they sort of ricochet like bouncing balls all over the end of the first verse. And then we get, I think it is the chorus, delivered like a mantra, or the safety sheet for operating an arc welder in multiple voices. These music pauses as if in reverence to the solemnity of the proclamation. I'm considering a move to Memphis, I'm considering. I take that is Tennessee and not Egypt. That'd be more impressive, but yeah. The groovy train swings past once more and the music starts up again. And at this point, I realise I have heard at least this chorus before. But I have no memory of any other part of the song, just the sort of a cappella delivery of that. I'm considering. And it's odd how when you said the title, it didn't register at all. But as soon as I heard it, it's like
in what other song have you ever heard that line delivered, or even considering where you are in the world, how many people have you ever encountered that have just said that sentence to you?
Oh, too many to count. But you know what? They may consider it, but most of them are all talk. They never actually do it.
Yeah, anyway. No one ever goes through with the Memphis move, do they, John? You're right.
No. It's usually they end up with somewhere like Basingstoke. But anyway. So yeah, it's bizarre how I just, as soon as that bit was like, yes, I know this bit, don't know anything of that. So it's just that I'm considering, which, is a fairly big part of the song. Still, it's a fun little number. And then I catch this timestamp and I'm like, oh God, it's 7 minutes nearly. But anyway, you can't deny the quirky charm of this. And it reminds me much of a certain Mr. Jonathan Richman. Granted, it doesn't have the hard-hitting impact of You Can't Talk to the Dude, or the social commentary of When Harpo Played His Harp, but it's getting there. So we get to the next verse. We get mentions of Gracelands and something about a death mask in wax or something, and then he plans his stay in his motel and stays. And I managed to capture some lines, but there's so many words, so I just try to pick my bits where I could. And he says something about Memphis isn't that big. And that's how he found it. And it only took an hour and a half to walk completely around it, which, I doubt the veracity of that. And he says about it's not that big, not that wide. It's still the kind of place where a country boy can hide, which I really like that line. It's funny. And it's good as well. It's reassuring because, he said that he's mentioned that he's visited Memphis before. So at least this is a considered and informed decision. And not just some flight of whimsy. We get more ba 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 bas, and then the song chorus before this really cute little sort of instrumental break, which showing off in turn the bass. Now it's definitely an acoustic bass. I don't know if it's a double bass. I suspect it is. Vibes, obviously, electric guitar, and some nice drum fills. And it all starts to then evolve and gets mixed around like a Kenwood for quite a short variation of the melody. 20 or 30 seconds, and then it reverts back to that very familiar hook. The next verse in the Rough Guide to Memphis concentrates on leisure activities. He talks about restaurants and 10-pin bowling and a few beers and chicken and some other stuff and hitting on the staff. But there's also a crust to be earned. However, our brave narrator isn't a slave to the dollar. He's just going to take a menial job at a steakhouse and realise that he's not going to be rich. But there's hope because apparently he's considering a move to Memphis. That's Memphis, Tennessee. So that negates the Egypt question.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
As
And
if
it worked for
the
Elvis
Beale
Presley.
Street or Graceland weren't enough. You needed it.
There's bound to be a Graceland in Memphis, Egypt. But he said it worked for Elvis Presley. Why can't it work for me? Well, good luck to you on that. And then there's something about this is really odd. People in restaurants using forks and knives, they don't take decongestants though because they're fear of getting hives. Yeah, I liked it. I didn't understand it. I mean, I thought the decongestant things were referring to, cocaine use or something, but I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah.
a few more bars and the chorus, and then another interlude, which is the same, but it's not the same. So again, it's led by the bass and then the vibes and the guitar, but this time the bass sounds, I think, electric bass, perhaps. The vibes sound pretty much the same, and then this click guitar. But I'm thinking almost it sounds like it's a banjo. It maybe even could be a banjo. The drums come in again and do a nice job of, again, acting like a food mixer. So it's the same, but it isn't the same. Really enjoyed, particularly the second instrumental break. Then we get onto this strange verse about sparrows and church and speaking in tongues and coming back in a jet. So, yeah, he completely lost me there. And he finishes with, when I arrive in Memphis, I'll put a sign on the door. It's okay to disturb me. That's what I came here for. Which I think is another really, really great line. And then we get the last bars and considerations ring out, and then we're done. So yeah, this was an interesting, fun song, quirky. Maybe think of other sort of like spoken conversational songs that you used to get a lot more of them. I doubt you really get them now. The first one I thought of was one in the 80s called Driving Away from Home. Like, pretty sure it's immaterial because I know the name of that band, and this was definitely a one-hit wonder. So if it wasn't them, it's immaterial. I had a one-hit wonder with something else. But this guy was kind of like, "Hey, get in," and he's talking about going in a car drive. And he sings the chorus, drive away from home, 30 miles or more. So it's a really long trip. I mean, people do that to go to the shops now, but it's driving away from 30 miles or more. Wow. Do you think we have to adjust our watches to another time zone? And also made me think of like before then, and this is my little sister's favorite song when it was out, when she was about 4, and that was Telephone Man. I can't remember who did that, but someone goes, "Hey baby, I'm your telephone man." But and then she sort of talks all the way through about that as well. And it seemed like there was a lot more of these quirky, novelty, talky, conversation-y type songs, particularly in the 70s, which you don't get now. And there's probably a reason for that, as it gets on people's nerves. But yeah, this had a lot of charm to it. And it was fun. I think it's slightly overlong, if I'm being honest. It did seem to go on for a bit. I really enjoyed the instrumental breaks, though. They were fun. And they kind of reminded me of a kind of, let's use the word, but a more innocent version of like a Fun and Femme sort of jam out bit where they go to an instrumental in the song. It was kind of the same spirit of that, but different, things. But
especially even like, the bass stuff that between what the Violent Femmes have done and this, for sure, I totally agree with you.
And then you got the xylophone stuff and Gone Daddy Gone.
Yep.
When they do those bits in a row, when they do like bass, xylophone, guitar, drums, and they keep going around and around. That's fantastic. So it's the same sort of idea there. But yeah, this is a lot of fun. Again, wouldn't reach for this every day or every month. Maybe once a year, but it's fun. When it comes on, I think that initial burst almost gives you like a reaction, like a joie de vivre. There's a carefree sort of like funness to it instantly. That music, and if this was like a 2-minute instrumental, totally with no singing, I would be totally happy with that. I think that'd be a perfect sort of little song to put on, and then you could do like your own cool videos to it. Anyway, so yeah, this is a really good show.
Excellent. Yeah, I really enjoyed this too. I would say like the things that I took issue with are something like the length. I mean, I don't know if the song needed to be this long. Although I do kind of take issue with the whole 2 minute thing that you just mentioned because like there are some really funny lines in here that I'm
Yeah,
afraid
yeah.
can be sacrificed for something like an instrumental that only lasts, a fraction of its actual runtime. I don't know if we needed the last verse or whatever, you know what I mean? We could have knocked this down to 4.5 minutes and probably been all right. But the lyrics are funny. It's clearly, to me, a very irreverent song that almost laughs. I think, for me, this is how I experience it. It's kind of laughing at songwriters who take themselves too seriously. Is how I've ingested it and how I kind of want to look at it because clearly they've written a really good song, but they're also taking the piss out of, I think, many people's attitudes who write music for a living, or you know what I mean? Because this is, and like you said, in the 70s, there was some of that quirky spoken words kind of stuff that, and you cited the song that your sister enjoyed so much, but this came out so much later that I think it's a more of a piss take on that than it is oh, we're just sneaking in here late to this genre to try to do the same thing. I think it's a little bit different than that. But regardless, I really enjoyed it. A lot of the musical elements that you gravitated toward, I also did. I mean, when I heard that seemingly upright bass doing its thing. That got my attention, and just the passing of the baton bits between the musicians was really interesting as well too. So yeah, I thought this was an awesome song. It was a really fun listen. I think that's the best way to describe it. It's just a fun song. Could be a
Yeah.
fun 4.5 minute song. Yeah, probably wouldn't hurt. But at the end of the day, it made me smile more than once, which is hats off to Mr. James and the fellas there. But yeah, let's get into the band. Colorblind James Experience was an American alternative roots pop rock band. Band leader and singer, songwriter, and guitarist Colorblind James Charles Cuminelli was originally from Rochester, New York, but assembled early versions of what would become the Experience in Oswego, New York, and then relocated to San Francisco, California. And after a couple of years of mixed results while in San Francisco, the band regrouped and moved again, and this time back to Rochester, New York, which remained its home base. In total, the band has released 9 studio albums and 5 singles. In 1987, the band scraped together enough money to press 1,000 copies of its debut self-titled LP. At the time of this recording, the band included Colorblind James on guitar, vibraphone, and vocals, Bernie Heverin on double bass and vocals, Jim McCavney on drums, and Philip Marshall on lead guitar and vocals. Cuminelli sent one copy abroad and specifically to BBC Radio's John Peel. The song Considering a Move to Memphis made a Peel's year-end festive 50 list. Now, I don't know I don't know the weight or the import of that list and how it would come out every year, but perhaps if that was something that you flocked to, that's where you encountered this. Yeah.
Probably. So festive 50s usually were voted by the listeners. And it became such a sort of benchmark thing that, this whole thing's devoted to it, and you can go on to internet and find them. And they're really great lists, to be honest with you. And it's usually the best music. And the early, from the late 70s, and they're both for songs that were like 4 years old or something, just crop up. And then it tended to be after that, more sort of, just within the year. I think one year he skipped it because he didn't have time or whatever. And there was like such an outrage about it. So it's a real sort of part of the alternative music scene.
Yeah.
And if you got in the top like 5 festive 50, that was a real benchmark that you've done real well in terms of your sort of cultish attractiveness to other.
Yeah. At the very least, it's saying you had a pretty good year. You know what I mean? If you've got 5 tracks that are banging around in the 50 in December. So yeah, that's cool. Interesting. So yeah, and honestly, just a couple of years after that song appearing on the festive 50 list, they would go on to do a Peel session, which is pretty cool. I'm sure they were over the moon. Obviously, I think our man James here has some degree of reverence for Mr. Peel. If he only got to press 1,000 of these, and he made
Yeah.
sure that one of them got sent, across the Atlantic, I'm sure that meant a lot.
Well,
So
he
how
sent it to
great
the
it would
right
be.
person as well. He sent it
Yeah,
to the right
yeah,
person.
exactly. So yeah, the band was signed to Fundamental Records in the U.S. and its sister company Red Rhino in the U.K. Prior to touring, Bernie Heverin left the band. Auditions were held, and the remaining trio were joined by David McIntyre on clarinet and sax, John Ebert on trombone, and Ken Frank on bass. So a bass player drops out, and you pick up three people. While we're out here shopping for basses, let's see what the clarinet section looks like. You know what I mean? That's great. The band followed up its debut LP with the Why Should I Stand Up album in 1989, which was released on Cooking Vinyl in the UK and Capitol subsidiary Gold Castle in the United States. That same year, they would release the aforementioned Peel Session EP that I mentioned a moment ago. The all-acoustic album Strange Sounds from the Basement was released in 1990 and only in the UK, and found the band working under the name Colorblind James and the Death Valley Boys. So I guess that tested well in the UK. I'm not sure. But though they were subsequently dropped by Cooking Vinyl and Gold Castle. So we're seeing a pattern here. A lot of changing from label to label here. The release of Solid Behind the Times in 92 on the US folk label Red House found the band without a UK label for the first time. While Red House pinned their hopes on the CD's success, the band was not in a position to tour the States extensively since the time between 1991 and 1993 found many longtime members leaving the band. In 1996, they released I Could Be Your Guide, and that found Cuminelli and McCavney joined by Gary Holt on bass, Tommy Tramontana on guitar, brother Charles Jaffe on keyboards, Rita Coulter on vocals, and Ethan Lyons on saxophone. It's always a large affair here. That CD was followed by the final studio CD titled Call of the Wild in 99. Sadly, Chuck Cuminelli, aka Colorblind James, died of arrhythmia in July of 2001. So, rest in peace, James. On July 8th, 2008, a tribute to him and his music was performed by an ensemble composed of musicians who had played with various incarnations of the band, as well as his son, Mark, on guitar. The performance was recorded for WXXI's On Stage. Collaborating and contributing for Trouser Press, Dave Sculps and David Greenberger wrote an article about the band and noted, on the self-titled debut, the experience is a quartet led by the estimable Mr. James, who sings, talks, and plays a mean vibraphone, and some guitar too. The album pretty much lays the groundwork for everything to come, as Colorblind delivers his story songs over repetitious but very sprightly figures, containing hints of country, blues, lounge jazz, polka, and Tex-Mex, in assorted permutations and combinations. The whole enterprise reaches its pinnacle on considering a move to Memphis, wherein James ponders the consequence of relocation. And Ted Mills over at AllMusic would write of the album and track an utterly perfect crackerjack of an album. The colorblind James experience throw a cockeyed at country music of all stripes, resulted in a manic, cartoony collection of songs that sound like Raymond Scott throwing a hootenanny in a downtown Manhattan bar. The centerpiece track, considering a move to Memphis, received alternative airplay in 1987, but in some ways it's dissimilar from the rest of the album. A long, rambling groove propelled by a vibes and guitar riff, over which colorblind James drawls out deadpan surreal nonsense, a love letter to a city he may never have visited in the first place. So let's get into these lyrics. I'm considering a move to Memphis, with my hair all aglow. When I arrive in Memphis, I'm bound to meet up with someone I might know. I'm considering a move to Memphis, a move to Memphis. I'm considering. I'll visit the Graceland mansion and set my face in wax, then go back to my motel room to file my income tax. I'm considering a move to Memphis, and this much I know. When I arrive in Memphis, I'll have to spend my dough. I'll walk down to Beale Street to watch the jug band show. I'll shake hands with Gus Cannon. He's someone I should know. I'll get myself a motel room, and that's not too small to see. I'll get one with a private bath and a black and white TV. Memphis isn't all that big, at least that's how I found it. Why, it took only a half an hour, or an hour and a half to walk completely around it. Memphis isn't all that big. It isn't all that wide. Still, it is the kind of place where a country boy can hide. I'm considering a move to Memphis, I'm considering. I'll find a favorite restaurant and eat there every day. And at the nearby bowling alley, I'll bowl my cares away. Someday I'll order chicken. Some days I'll order fish. Some days I'll have pierogies. That's a Polish dish. And after bowling 20 frames, I'll sit and have a beer. Perhaps I meet a pretty girl who is a barmaid there. I'll get a job at a steakhouse, wash dishes, mop floors. Yes, I know I won't get rich. Memphis is the kind of town that won't feel like a trap. Besides, I kind of like the way it sits there on the map. I'm considering a move to Memphis. That's Memphis, Tennessee. It worked for Elvis Presley. Why can't it work for me? The people in the restaurants there will be all used to forks and knives, and they won't take decongestants, though, for fear of getting hives. Yeah, I didn't get that one either, John. I'm considering a move to Memphis, I'm considering. I'll ask the lowly sparrow up in the lofty perch. Would you please direct me to the local Baptist church? I'll attend the Wednesday meeting, and there I'll speak in tongues. I'll shout and holler, praise the Lord, till I nearly burst my lungs. Someday I'll return to Memphis in my own private jet. I'll remember my first visit there. That's if I don't forget. When I arrive in Memphis, I'll put a sign out on the door. It's okay to disturb me. That's what I came here for. I'm considering a move to Memphis, I'm considering. So, yeah, there you go. Yeah, if he keeps at all that dishwashing and mopping for the next few hundred years, he might be able to save enough for that private jet. Go ahead, sir.
Do you know who Gus Cannon is?
No, I was hoping you did, though, because it is clearly a direct allusion to someone, but I had no idea who it is.
Fair enough. Never heard of him.
Yeah, me neither. Maybe he's part of the Memphis country scene or something down there that is before my time and never reached my radar. But if anybody out there in the audience knows who Mr. Cannon is, please feel free to drop us a line. Point of interest. But yeah, really fun, just irreverent as hell, silly, and some more than a few lyrical kind of spotlights in this track for me anyway. And I'm glad that you seemingly enjoyed it as well, John, for similar reasons. Excellent. Well, then I will wrap this thing up. Bruce, Mr. Lukoc, thank you so much for reaching out to us via email and dropping this suggestion. I had a lot of fun listening to this. John had a lot of fun listening to this, and some interesting little bits of history in this too. It right out of the gate, it's just wild to me that they had more success in Rochester than they did in a place like San Francisco. But hey, just goes to show you, you know what I mean? It doesn't necessarily matter where you are. It's just who likes the music that you're doing where you are. And I guess upstate New York worked out for them. Yeah, really interesting to listen, Bruce. Thanks again for shouting this one out. Guys out there in the listening audience, please let us know what you thought of this track by the Colorblind James Experience. If there's anything else by him we should check out, or you have any suggestions for us, please feel free to shout them out in the comments below or the comment field of any of our videos. Also, please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done any or all of those things. We really do appreciate it. It doesn't cost you but a couple of seconds, and it goes a long way to help us here at the channel, so we do appreciate it. And hopefully John and I will catch all y'all in growing numbers on the next installment of the Audiophiles. We'll see you later, guys.